Dot 21, 22, 23. According to the Babylonian Talmud, 24. The temple lacked the Shekinah, the dwelling or settling divine presence of God, and the Ruach HaKodesh, Holy Spirit, present in the first temple. Rededication by the Maccabees. Following the conquest of Judea by Alexander the Great, it became part of the Ptolemaic Kingdom of Egypt until 200 BCE, when the Seleucid king Antiochus III the Great of Syria defeated Pharaoh Ptolemy V Epiphanes at the Battle of Panion. In 167 BCE, Antiochus IV Epiphanes ordered an altar to Zeus erected in the temple. He also, according to Josephus, compelled Jews to dissolve the laws of the country, to keep their infants uncircumcised, and to sacrifice swine's flesh upon the altar, against which they all opposed themselves, and the most approved among them were put to death. 25. Following the Maccabean revolt against the Seleucid Empire, the Second Temple was rededicated and became the religious pillar of the Jewish Hasmonean kingdom, as well as culturally associated with the Jewish holiday of Hanukkah. 26. 27. Hasmonean dynasty and Roman conquest. There is some evidence from archaeology that further changes to the structure of the temple and its surroundings were made during Hasmonean rule. Salome Alexandra, the queen of the Hasmonean kingdom, appointed her elder son Hyrcanus II as the high priest of Judea. Her younger son Aristobulus too was determined to have the throne, and as soon as she died he seized the throne. Hyrcanus, who was next in the succession, agreed to be content with being high priest. Antipater, the governor of Idumea, encouraged Hyrcanus not to give up his throne. Eventually Hyrcanus fled to Artaxerxes III, king of the Nabateans, and returned with an army to take back the throne. He defeated Aristobulus and besieged Jerusalem. The Roman general Pompey, who was in Syria fighting against the Armenians in the Third Mithridatic War, sent his lieutenant to investigate the conflict in Judea. Both Hyrcanus and Aristobulus appealed to him for support. Pompey was not diligent in making a decision about this, which caused Aristobulus to march off. He was pursued by Pompey and surrendered, but his followers closed Jerusalem to Pompey's forces. The Romans besieged and took the city in 63 BCE. The priests continued. Modern-day reconstruction of Jerusalem during the 10th century BCE, showing Solomon's temple, which was on the site prior to the building of the Second Temple. With the religious practices inside the temple during the siege. The temple was not looted or harmed by the Romans. Pompey himself, perhaps inadvertently, went into the Holy of Holies and the next day ordered the priests to repurify the temple and resume to religious practices. 28. Herod's Temple. Herod's Temple is imagined in the Holy Land model of Jerusalem, east at the bottom view of the Temple Mount in 2013, east at the bottom the writings of Flavius Josephus and the information in Tractate Midat of the Mishnah had for long been used for proposing possible designs for the temple up to 70 CE. 1. The discovery of Temple Scroll as part of the Dead Sea Scrolls in the 20th century provided another possible source. Lawrence Schiffman states that after studying Josephus and Temple Scroll, he found Josephus to be historically more reliable than the Temple Scroll. 29. Temenos expansion, dating and duration. Reconstruction of the temple under Herod began with a massive expansion of the Temple Mount Temenos. For example, the Temple Mount complex initially measured 7 hectares, 17 acres, in size, but Herod expanded it to 14.4 hectares, 36 acres, and so doubled its area. 30. Herod's work on the templates generally dated from 20/19 BCE until 12/11 or 10 BCE. Writer Bike Mahayu dates the work on the temple enclosures from 25 BCE and that on the temple building in 19 BCE, and situates their dedication of both in the 18th of November BCE. 31. Religious worship and temple rituals continued during the construction process. 32. Extent and financing. The old temple built by Zerubbabel was replaced by a magnificent edifice. Herod's temple was one of the larger construction projects of the 1st century BCE. 33. Josephus records that Herod was interested in perpetuating his name through building projects, that his construction programs were extensive and paid for by heavy taxes, but that his masterpiece was the Temple of Jerusalem. 33. Herod's temple later. The sanctuary shekel was reinstituted to support the temple as the temple tax. 34. Elements. Platform, substructures, retaining walls. Mount Moriah had a plateau at the northern end, and steeply declined on the southern slope. It was Herod's plan that the entire mountain be turned into a giant square platform. The Temple Mount was originally intended to be 1,600 feet, 490 m, wide by 900 feet, 270 m, broad by 9 stories high, with walls up to 16 feet, 4.9 m, thick, but had never been finished. To complete it, a trench was dug around the mountain, and huge stone blocks were laid. Some of these weighed well over 100 tons, the largest measuring 44.6 by 11 by 16.5 feet, 13.6 m, 3.4 m, 5.0 m, and weighing approximately 628 tons. 35. Court of the Gentiles. The Court of the Gentiles was primarily a bazaar, with vendors selling souvenirs, sacrificial animals, food. Currency was also exchanged, with Roman currency exchanged for Tyrian money, as also mentioned in the New Testament account of Jesus and the money changers, when Jerusalem was packed with Jewish pilgrims who had come for Passover, perhaps numbering 300,000 to 400,000. 36. 37. Above the Huldah gates, on top the temple walls, was the royal stone, a large basilica praised by Josephus more worthy of mention than any other structure under the sun. Its main part was a lengthy hall of columns which includes 162 columns, structured in 4 rows. 38. The royal stone in the Holy Land model of Jerusalem. The royal stone is widely accepted to be part of Herod's work. However, recent archaeological finds in the Western Wall channels suggest that it was built in the 1st century during the reign of Agrippes, as opposed to the 1st century BCE. 39. Pinnacle. The accounts of the temptation of Christ in the Gospels of Matthew and Luke both suggest that Second Temple had one or more pinnacles. Then he, Satan, brought him to Jerusalem, set him on the pinnacle of the temple, and said to him, "If you are the Son of God, throw yourself down from here." 40. The Greek word used is terugen, which literally means a tower, rampart, or pinnacle. 41. According to Strong's Concordance, it can mean little wing, or by extension anything like a wing such as abattlement or parapet. 42. The archaeologist Benjamin Mazer thought it referred to the southeast corner of temple overlooking the Kidron Valley. 43. Inner courts. According to Josephus, there were 10 entrances into the inner courts, 4 on the south, 4 on the north, 1 on the east, and 1 leading east to west from the court of women to the court of the Israelites, named Nicanor Gate. 44. According to Josephus, Herod the Great erected a golden eagle over the great gate of temple. 45. Roofs. Joachim Bouthlet states that the teams of archaeologists Naaman of Igord in 1969-1980 in the Herodian city of Jerusalem and Ugaal Shiloh in 1978-1982, in the city of David have proven that the roofs of the Second Temple had no dome. In this, they support Josephus' description of the Second Temple. 46. Pilgrimages. Jews from distant parts of the Roman Empire would arrive by boat at the port of Jaffa, where they would join a caravan for the 3-day trek to the Holy City and would then find lodgings in one of the many hotels or hostelries. Then they changed some of their money from the profane standard Greek and Roman currency for Jewish and Tyrian money, the latter two considered religious. 47. 48. Destruction. Siege and destruction of Jerusalem by the Romans, 1850. Painting by David Roberts. Looking southwest in 66 CE, the Jewish population rebelled against the Roman Empire. 4 years later, on the 4th of August, 1970 CE, 49, the 9th day of Av and possibly the day on which Tisha B'Av was observed, 50, or 30 August 70 CE, 51, Roman legions under Titus retook and destroyed much of Jerusalem and the Second Temple. The Arch of Titus, which was built in Rome to commemorate Titus's victory in Judea, depicts a Roman victory procession with soldiers carrying spoils from the temple, including the menorah. According to an inscription on the Colosseum, Emperor Vespasian built the Colosseum with war spoils in 79 CE, possibly from the spoils of Second Temple. 52. The sects of Judaism that had their base in the temple dwindled in importance, including the priesthood and the Sadducees. 53. The temple was on the site of what today is the Dome of the Rock. The gates led out close to Al-Aqsa Mosque, which came much later. 32. Although Jews continued to inhabit the destroyed city, Emperor Hadrian established a new city called Aelia Capitolina. At the end of the Bar Kokhba revolt in 135 CE, many of the Jewish communities were massacred and Jews were banned from living inside Jerusalem. 28. A pagan Roman temple was set up on the former site of Herod's temple. Present-day view of the Temple Mount looking southwest, with the Golden Dome of the Rock visible center and the Al-Aqsa Mosque top left beyond some trees. Parts of Old City of Jerusalem can be seen surrounding the mount. Historical accounts relate that not only the Jewish temple was destroyed, but also the entire lower city of Jerusalem. 54. Even so, according to Josephus, Titus did not totally raze the towers, such as Tower of Phasael, now erroneously called the Tower of David, keeping them as a memorial of the city's strength. 55. 56. The Midrash Rabbah, Acre Rabbah 132, recounts a similar episode related to the destruction of the city. According to which Rabban Yohanan ben Zakkai, during the Roman siege of Jerusalem, requested of Vespasian that he spare the westernmost gates of the city, Hebrew, that lead to Lyia, Nod. When the city was eventually taken, the Arab auxiliaries who had fought alongside the Romans under their general, Fanja, also spared that westernmost wall from destruction. 57. Jewish eschatology includes a belief that the Second Temple will be replaced by a future Third Temple in Jerusalem. 58. Archaeology of the Temple. Temple warning inscriptions. Soeg inscription warning non-Jews from entering the sanctuary of the Second Temple in 1871. A hewn stone measuring 60 centimeters 90 centimeters, 24 in 35 in, and engraved with Greek uncials was discovered near a court on Temple Mount in Jerusalem and identified by Charles Simon Clement Ganillo as being the temple warning inscription. Festal inscription outlined the prohibition extended to those who are not of the Jewish nation to proceed beyond the Soreg, separating the larger court of the Gentiles and the inner courts. The inscription read in 7 lines. Translation: let no foreigner enter within the parapet and the partition which surrounds the Templar precincts. Anyone caught violating will be held accountable for his ensuing death. Today, the stone is preserved in Istanbul's Museum of Antiquities. 59. In 1935 a fragment of another similar temple warning inscription was found. 59. Place of trumpeting. Another ancient inscription, partially preserved on a stone discovered below the southwest corner of the Herodian Mount, contains the words to the place of trumpeting. The stone's shape suggests that it was part of a parapet, and it has been interpreted as belonging to a spot on the mount described by Josephus where one of the priests to stand and to give notice, by sound of trumpet, in the afternoon of the approach and on the following evening of the close, of every seventh day, closely resembling what the Talmud says. 60. Walls and gates of the temple complex. After 1967,